Welcome to Decision Vision, a podcast series focusing on critical business decisions. Brought to you by Brady Ware & Company. Brady Ware is a regional, full-service accounting and advisory firm that helps businesses and entrepreneurs make visions a reality.
Welcome to Decision Vision, a podcast giving you, the listener, clear vision to make great decisions. In each episode, we discuss the process of decision-making on a different topic from the business owner's or executive's perspective. We aren't necessarily telling you what to do, but we can put you in a position to make an informed decision on your own and understand when you might need help along the way. My name is Mike Blake, and I'm your host for today's program. I'm a director at Brady Ware & Company, a full-service accounting firm based in Dayton, Ohio, with offices in Dayton, Columbus, Ohio, Richmond, Indiana, and Alpharetta, Georgia. Brady Ware is sponsoring this podcast, which is being recorded in Atlanta for social distancing protocols. If you'd like to engage with me on social media and with my chart of the day and other content, I am on LinkedIn as myself and at Unblakeable on Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, and Instagram. If you like this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast aggregator and please consider leaving a review of the podcast as well. Today's topic is, should I relocate my business? And I don't know that this topic gets talked about a lot, actually. It's kind of interesting as I was doing research for this program. But yeah, I think in the current period in which we find ourselves, we're recording this on June 22nd, 2021. There's a lot of interest, I think, in relocating. We've seen a number of American icons relocating their businesses. Notably Tesla relocating from California to Texas. Some of the big investment banks, I think it's either JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, I forget which one. One of the Morgans that is relocating or has relocated from New York to Florida. And other businesses are, of course, relocating as well. And I think the pandemic is bringing this potential choice or decision much more sharply into focus, because I think one of the things the pandemic has done is it's made many of us realize that location is important, but it's probably important for reasons that are different than what we thought they were 2 years ago. In some cases, you relocated to be close to talent, right? And that's one of the reasons Silicon Valley continues to thrive, is because they have a critical mass of talent for writing code and building digital businesses and biotech as well. Or sometimes you want to relocate your headquarters because that's where the locus of your customers is. And that's one of the reasons, for example, that International Paper relocated from Stamford, Connecticut to Richmond, Virginia, a few years back. But I think we're also seeing a lot of other reasons why companies may decide that the calculus that goes into their location is simply changing. It may be for tax reasons. It may be because they realize that they're just as likely to have employees that are working from Montana as they are from Monterey. It could be infrastructure. It could be something entirely different. And so as companies are realizing that they perhaps are more mobile and workers are more mobile than we've come to accept them being in the past, I think more companies are encountering this decision on whether or not they should relocate. And if so, what does that relocation look like? Because I've never relocated a business myself. I suspect it's harder than simply boxing up all your china in your house, loading it onto a truck, and then moving. But we have a couple of guests that have done it, and they're going to tell us the ins and outs of what they did and why they did it. Maybe some things they would have done differently if they had to do it over again. So we're joined by two guests today, and in no particular order. I'm going to start with introducing Jefferson Harralson, who is Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of United Community Banks Incorporated. Jefferson has more than 25 years of experience in the financial services industry. United Community Banks is a publicly traded company. Their ticker is UCBI on the NASDAQ. They provide a full range of banking, wealth management, and mortgage services for relationship-oriented customers and business owners. In fact, I think my mortgage is actually with you guys. So the company known as the bank that service built has been recognized nationally for delivering award-winning service. In 2021, J.D. Power ranked United highest in customer satisfaction with retail banking in the Southeast, marking 7 out of the last 8 years United earned the coveted award. United was also named Best Banks to Work For by American Banker in 2020 for the 4th year in a row based on employee satisfaction. They've also won a bunch of other awards. I could be here all day. You want to learn more about that, go check out their website, but they're good. Also joining us is Jan Schlueter, who is joining us actually from Germany. I think this is our first it's our second international podcast, first from Germany, who for the last 6.5 years is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Darvis Incorporated. And Darvis is a leading robotic process automation platform. Darvis makes organizations more efficient by simplifying and automating processes using computer vision and artificial intelligence. By tracking situations and objects, Darvis turns the real world into useful data. Their mission is to enable continuous understanding and optimization of healthcare services. Darvis, which stands for Data Analytics Real-World Visual Information System, uses state-of-the-art patented artificial intelligence-powered technology to give rooms and objects a voice, analyzing optical sensors to provide contextual insights that enable hospitals and care facilities to build and manage safe and optimal flows of medical equipment and services. Jefferson and Jan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mike, for having us, or having me. Thanks.
Thank you.
So Jan, since you digitally traveled the farthest to be here, you're 6 hours ahead of us. I'd like to invite you first. Talk. What is your relocation story? Where did you go? Where did you start from? And what were the drivers behind that decision for you?
So we started as two founders from Germany in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. We did the software play. With let's say 6.5 years ago, with a different approach, but we thought software and San Francisco and the Bay Area, that's it. We have to be there. That's why we founded a Darvis with a different name in a let's say segment of what was it? It was live streaming and virtual reality, something completely different. What you just said what Darvis is, but it has a lot of, let's say, elements in it today. And it was a great time. It was all good for starting a business. That's the perfect spot to be. But as we grew in more markets like Germany, like the UK, and as of course in the US, we found out that it is getting, let's say, too expensive, to be bluntly here, for hiring people of the skill set we need. So we need AI engineers, developers, all the people that have a really high, let's say, compensation ask for getting on board. And just only a T-shirt and a cup of a branded, let's say, coffee isn't do the trick. And it is quite hard to get, let's see, tier one of our formal employers said, okay, this is a tier one place to be, but you also have to pay tier one salaries. And that is quite hard when you are, let's say, a thriving company and a growing company. And sometimes you need the money elsewhere than just paying the landlords in San Francisco the rent of your employees. So that was just one big, I must say, aspect to have the decision made of relocating from San Francisco to, in that respective, Nashville, Tennessee. So that is one aspect. But of course, we were very much business driven. So as you might know, Nashville/Tennessee is the hotspot, the epicenter of healthcare industry. That was a huge driver for us to make the decision to reallocate. And so many things on top happened to, let's say, we were in a program of the Project Healthcare in the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. We had a very good relationship. So to the, let's say, ambassadors of Tennessee, I don't know the correct name right now, but there are people who are from the Chamber of Commerce. They reached out to us and said, "Hey, come to Nashville, come to Tennessee. We love you having you here." And we had a very good talks, very good relations, and that all in all led to the decision. Yeah, let's do it in Nashville. So a very short story.
Okay, and Nashville. I mean, I don't do a lot of healthcare, but I do a little bit of work in healthcare. Nashville's sort of a sneaky important healthcare hub now.
It is.
We think of healthcare. We often think of a place like Boston or San Diego or Minneapolis or New Jersey, but Nashville's become really important in that regard. So you're clearly living proof of that.
Absolutely, and it was by accident that we found out that Nashville is the place to be. It's drawing a lot of attention right now from let's say the Bay Area in California. So it's doing a pretty damn good job of promoting itself as the place to be in terms of tech, innovation, and all that stuff. So yeah, good for us.
So Jefferson, how about you? You guys have also had a recent move. Tell us your move story.
Yeah, so a smidge of history about the bank. Started in 1950 in a relatively small town. Not even relatively, an actual small town in North Georgia, Blairsville, Georgia. It's a beautiful place to be. There are mountains, there's lakes, and United Community is a bank that's in Blairsville that was growing very quickly and got to be about $6 billion in assets, and had a goal of being $20 billion in assets. And we found that if we were going to hire a head of audit or a quant team or the types of people that you need to be a $20 billion bank, you just were not going to be able to get them to come to Blairsville, Georgia, and work there. So I need lenders, we need treasury people, and it just wasn't going to happen. And so, starting in 2012, ours is more gradual in a way. We hired our now CEO. He was in 2012. He was the first person in Greenville, South Carolina. Now we're over 300 people in Greenville, South Carolina. And so what we saw was a gradual growth towards Greenville. On July 1st, we will move our official headquarters to July 1st. But this has really been a 6 or 7 year effort to move our business to this city of Greenville, South Carolina. If you don't know it, it's right on I-85. It's right between Atlanta and Charlotte. It's one of the fastest growing and really nicest cities in the country, with just written up in the Wall Street Journal. Clemson University is here. Other universities are here, Furman. So it's a kind of a college, former manufacturing town that's reinvented itself to financial services and a diverse, a great place to live. So we found that by moving here, by moving the growth of our business here, we're able to hire the people we need, and we are indeed now just under $20 billion in assets.
So I want to continue on that the description, because I'm curious. You chose Greenville. There are other cities like Greenville that to which you could have moved, and in effect, what you really did, you sort of moved up the road, basically. Yeah. What was it about Greenville? Why? I'm sure at least at some point discussion of Atlanta might have come up. Yeah. Or you could have moved to a similar city like Chattanooga, or maybe even Raleigh, Durham, something like that. What was it about Greenville that attracted you above other candidates?
So Greenville is the size of a market, especially versus Atlanta, that we believe that a $20 billion bank can come in and really make a difference. We believe that we put our headquarters in Atlanta, where you really need to, in bank verbiage, need to be able to write a $100 million check to be a player in Atlanta, to compete with the BB&Ts and SunTrust at the time and the Wells Fargos. We prefer cities like Chattanooga, Charleston, Raleigh, Myrtle Beach, even Orlando. We're in Charlotte and Atlanta, but we really like these mid-tier cities where you can come in know all the players in the market and be a major player in these cities. So it kind of went hand in hand with where we think the strengths of our bank were. And we thought being in Atlanta would be kind of giving up that opportunity to take a great market and show a great presence in exactly the type of market that we want to be in.
So, Jan, I want to ask you a question, and I think you're going to have an interesting perspective on it because you're not a native of the United States, and that is, was there any kind of culture shock moving from San Francisco, which I speculate, I don't, I've only visited Germany. I've not spent much time there, but I speculate San Francisco is a much more European kind of city, perhaps less culture shock. Nashville, maybe not so much, right? Nashville is no fooling deep South, and it's a big city, has a cosmopolitan element, but nobody confuses Nashville with San Francisco. And I'm curious, did you and maybe others from San Francisco, was there any kind of culture shock simply by moving from one part of the country that has a different set of social and economic and political priorities to a different part with ones that are very different?
Actually, yes, but at first I would like to add something to Jefferson. So I think it's a good point to say I would like to be, let's say, playing a bigger role in a smaller city than being a very small role in a huge city, and that applies basically as well to San Francisco. So in San Francisco, there are the big ones like name it. Amazon and Facebook and Google and everyone. So to grow there as a company with ambitions, and I think as well Jefferson's company and as well Darvis, we have ambition, and I think in an, let's say, smaller context, you can become, let's say, you can grow better, let's say like this. And to answer your question, culture shock does not seem negative. So there is something huge difference between the California, Bay Area, San Francisco, and the Tennessee, Nashville culture. But I don't want to badmouth California. They are awesome. That's a cool society there, and it's awesome. But it's a little bit more familiar, more friendly, more heart welcoming in Nashville, Tennessee. When you go to a barber shop and they are asking you, hey, what are you doing here? I've never seen you before. And when you're telling a little bit what you're doing, they say, oh, welcome. It's so cool that you are here. So it's more, and I think it's true, meant a warm welcome from the culture in Tennessee than the, let's say, more superficial, more I don't care attitude in California.
That's really interesting. Yeah. And just to echo, it's not necessarily one part of the country is better or worse than the other. Sometimes a better fit, but they're just different. Right. And I think a lot of people like that element of the San Francisco culture. So sort of go, and you're focused on your one thing. And, but a place like Nashville, and I think Atlanta has this too, is, you can come to Atlanta, particularly, I think, in technology. Financial services is different. I agree with Jefferson's assessment, but in technology, it is sort of a smaller pond here. So I get what you're saying. Companies that have relocated to Atlanta from Silicon Valley say something very similar as to what you're saying, Jan. And Jan, I want to continue with I want to ask another question because Jefferson brought this up. He said that their planning was in effect, 7 or 8 years in the making, or at least there was a lead up of 7 or 8 years in the making. Your company isn't even 7 or 8 years old. So I'm curious as to how long your planning process took.
Not that long, of course. So no, actually it was within a year, I must say. So when we applied for the Project Healthcare in Nashville, and we went through this program that was, I think, outstanding, considering that it was the pandemic edition. In that case, it was 100% virtual, and I took all the classes from here, from Germany. So and I felt connected though, and during this year, and due to let's say some business aspects that arose, we made the decision within a year. So and then we executed it a couple of weeks ago. So
So those economic development officers from Nashville really did their job, I guess.
They did. Yeah, we ran into open doors, like you say.
Mike, I might add in there, because I'm attracted to Jan's faster process in some ways, because I just want to throw out one of the challenges of doing it gradual. So if as more and more things began coming to Greenville, and it became clear, even though we hadn't moved the headquarters here, but more and more of the tasks were coming here, the people in Blairsville got sensitive sometimes to watching this task or that task move from one city or the other. So, and we were able to overcome that with a lot of communication, but there was just a lot of change happening, and it was very gradual. And people were sensitive to very small changes more than I would have guessed. And so, I think both ways can work, but I think the faster move is probably preferable if you can do it.
Is it? I mean, is it fair to say, Jefferson? And I appreciate what you're saying. And instinctively, it does sound like the kind of decision that may be better, sort of ripping off the Band-Aid than trying to take it off slowly. But on the other hand, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your move almost sort of happened organically. That in some ways the momentum kind of, and I mean no disrespect in the way I'm saying this, but it sounds like the momentum in a way carried the decision along for you. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and by the time we actually, air quote, moved the headquarters, it was really already moved. The CEO was here. I'm the CFO. I was here. Most of the team was here. So by the time we actually, and it's actually happening on July 1st, moved the headquarters, everybody was kind of saying, "Well, okay, it's already been done." So it was not a big shock. We didn't move a lot of people. Really, the growth of the company just took us here, if you will.
So I'll ask my next question. I'm sure is going to be near and dear to your heart. Talk about, well, just given your story, this may be a harder question to answer than I had anticipated, but I need to ask it anyway. And that is, what were the costs, or how large was the cost of actually making the move? But I now wonder, since it was so gradual and so organic, can you even really begin to quantify it?
It's really almost imperceptible, because in year one, we had one person, then we had 10, then we had 30. And a big piece of it happened in 2015. We bought a bank here called Palmetto Bank. They had more people. They had branches here. They had sort of a headquarters building here that we had moved into for a small amount of time. And so that was a big jump that happened in 2016. Then what really had us move the headquarters was something I think Jan was just talking about, which was something you brought up too, Mike, was taxes. We are planning on building a building. We had bought a lot. So we have a headquarters building in mind. And if we were ever going to officially move the headquarters, now is the time, because we can now go negotiate with the city, negotiate with the county, negotiate with the state, say, hey, we'll move our headquarters here. If we have the right, sorts of support here, and everybody was very supportive, and we're very thankful. But that's what kind of brought on the timing for us more than the number of people or organic growth. It was the building was something that was the hurdle that came that said, okay, now is the time.
So, Jan, how about you? I suspect that your costs for moving were probably much more visible. Talk about that. Was it, we don't have to get into round numbers. Was it very expensive? Was it moderately expensive, maybe less expensive than you thought? How would you characterize the expense of switching locations?
It was not so expensive than expected, because we are first and foremost a remote first company, and we are already spread across the globe, Germany, UK, and the US, and we had not that many employees there, and one of them were leaving us because of saying, okay, no, I don't want to go with you to a tier 4 city. And that was the best decision ever, because we got rid of someone who doesn't appreciate the move. So he was kind of stuck in the past of being there and need to be there. So, but this is a complete different story. But in the end, we started. So if you include that costs of renting a, let's say, 3,500 square feet AI warehouse test center, if you so will, plus office space. So if you include that, so it was, let's say, overseeable. So it was not that amount that is maybe with Jefferson. So yeah.
Okay. Well, and you bring something up that I want to talk about a little bit too, in that, we talk about the mobility of labor, of course, and work from anywhere, at least in the United States. I can't speak to elsewhere, but in the United States, I think it's highly unlikely we're all just going back to offices. My team, I tell them I don't care, as long as you get your work done, you can do it in Tahiti, as far as I'm concerned. But we don't talk about the fact that this also makes companies more mobile, doesn't it? Right? Because I suspect that in the past, one of the concerns about moving a company is you may lose critical talent, right? Because I live in San Francisco, my kids are here, I don't want to move them, so the company moves, you have to find that new talent. But it just occurred to me, Jan, as you were saying that the mobility actually goes both ways. Is because of this, companies can move more easily than they ever could as well.
Absolutely. And as I said, we are a remote first company, ever been, due to our philosophy that doesn't have anything to do with the COVID pandemic. But every space that we are renting or planning to rent will have less space, because right now we are offering space that the people can come and be there and meet there and do their job, but they are not obliged to do so. And that therefore we need just less space, and not for everyone a certain square feet area that they need to have. And that is good for us because it is less costly. And it's the way we are like to work. So I'm just, before we rented the office in Nashville, or the whole let's say warehouse / office space, we were asking the people who we are hiring there, or they are already there. So we are right now 8 people since the last 6 weeks. So we are growing very much. But we asked them, what do you think? Will you come frequently to the office, or shall we make it more comfortable, or you do not care? And they said, yeah, I would like to show up 2 times max in the office, and that's it. And for us, it's fine. So, but it's a good decision to do.
So, Jan, a follow-up question. Oh, Jefferson, do you want to add something?
Well, just to add something super quick, because my story here is just so opposite of Jan, and I think it's our businesses. The banking business I view it as a team sport. It's a collaboration sport. It's there's a lot of mentorship. There's a lot of apprenticeship, and we really believe that you need to be back in the office. And we're watching our competitors to see if we don't want to lose our employees, because employees definitely want to be home more than they were before. And we've brought our employees back. We're probably 85% now working in the office. But we have a strong belief that working in the office is important, and we're trying to now balance it in the new world. But it's since it was so opposite to Jan, I just wanted to go ahead and lay that out there.
Yeah, well, it does underscore, the model, the labor model is going to be different for everybody. And clearly, in manufacturing and retail, you can't build cars from home, right? There's some that are just going to require physical presences, at least for the foreseeable future. And I can appreciate, Jefferson, in your world, banking is, I think, ideally a high touch process. There has been some digital transformation, but I think that can only kind of go so far. And frankly, I think that's reflective of where you decided to move, right? You as I understand it, you moved in a place where being a high touch kind of bank matters.
Exactly.
As opposed to Atlanta, where I think it would matter less. It's much more of a commodity. I'm going to borrow from you because you're giving me 0.02 of a basis point better deal, right? But everything's exactly the same. That's a different kind of competitive dynamic.
Exactly.
One of the things that's kind of interesting from listening to you both is neither of you have really mentioned taxes or regulation or even any kind of special incentives in the decision to move. Now, I'm curious about that, and maybe there's no story to tell, but I want to ask that explicitly. So, Jefferson, let me start with you. Were there any regulations in Georgia, for example, that were irritating that you found yourselves not being constrained by in South Carolina? Were there tax incentives? Any of those kind of government regulatory dynamics at work there?
So there really wasn't. Actually, we had to take a bit of a risk because we had very good regulatory relations with our Georgia state examiners, and to leave that to go to South Carolina, where we do not know the regulators, get to form our relationship. We don't have a 70-year relationship with this organization, so it was a bit of a risk for us to move. So that was actually one of the reasons I think that kept us in Georgia longer, is this great relationship we have with our regulatory bodies.
Now, Jan, how about you? I read a lot of stories about companies that are supposedly fleeing California because of the taxes and the regulation, et cetera. I don't know how much of that is actually true versus just the media trying to get clicks. How big a factor was that in your decision?
Not a big factor, to be honest. Everything I told you before was the main driver. It's business. It's the hotspot of business we can do in Nashville, and the tax and everything that comes with it. We're discussing with the Chamber of Commerce, and there are some nice, let's say, incentives there. Yes, but they are just an add-on, to be honest. So it was not our main driver.
Well, so I'm glad we covered this part, because I think your responses run counter to the main narrative. Again, we hear, at least I hear and read about companies that are fleeing the West Coast, they're fleeing the Northeast in order to find lower tax, lower regulation environments, particularly in the Southeastern United States, to a lesser extent in the Midwest. And, one of the things I advise my clients is, yes, go ahead and pay attention to taxes, but I really wouldn't make a major strategic decision based on taxes alone. That's really wagging the dog. And I get it, taxes are irritating, but they really, unless they're just absurd, they really shouldn't be driving the strategic decision. I think it sounds like you both agree with that.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Jefferson, question I think applies more to you. When you announced that you were moving your headquarters to South Carolina, did the local authorities contact you and do anything to try to get you to stay? Because I imagine you were a fixture of that community for decades, and
right.
That must have gotten people's attention when you said we're moving headquarters. Did you get a phone call from the mayor or the local government trying to get you guys to reconsider?
Definitely, we some of the local leaders reached out. I don't know if they really had us reconsider, but they definitely reached out. I was a little surprised. I'm excited to hear Jan answer this question too. But the state of Georgia, some of the the bigger statewide organizations, I was surprised, did not reach out to us. And we were also getting this big welcome into South Carolina, and we're getting reached out to by some very important people within the state. And I was a little surprised that we did not have the same thing in Georgia. So no, we didn't really get much pushback from the area that we left.
That's stunning to me, given how important you are in that part of the state where finance jobs don't exactly grow on trees either. It's stunning to me that you didn't there wasn't some effort to kind of retain you guys in some way.
There was not.
Jan, how about you? I knew you were kind of a smaller fish in a much larger pond, but I don't want to assume your answer. So I'll ask the same question of you. Was there any reaction trying to pull you and keep you in Northern California?
None.
Yeah. I mean, I would think the opposite might happen now that you're in Nashville. As you grow, if you ever consider relocating again, I suspect the likelihood of some kind of effort to retain you is much more likely in Nashville than it would be in San Francisco.
Absolutely. Because of the relationship, we are very much closer to the state officials than we have ever been before in California. So there is a personal relationship on so many levels. We've been invited to some meetings, some events, so to learn more about the people who are in charge there. So that didn't happen ever before in California. So I guess not.
Now, Jan, in your relocation thought process, did you ever consider maybe other alternatives, such as maybe simply opening a representative office or a branch office or a research and development facility, as opposed to relocating the headquarters? Or was relocating the headquarters the only alternative that you considered?
No, of course we could have just opened an office there and kept the headquarters there. But it was, to be honest, a kind of a contribution to their efforts, to the relationship, and they are very, very how to say it, thankful. It was, I don't know, a gift that we sent them, or it was a sign or a message or whatever you can call it, that we made the decision to make headquarters move to Nashville. That was a move that we wanted to give them, because they asked us, would you also consider relocating headquarters? And for us, it was no big deal. So yeah, that we did. To offer to build another office elsewhere in the U.S. would be then not a relocation of the headquarters, just be then where business is. We would then considerably open an office or branch office there.
So I'm curious. I'm going to ask this question of both of you. I'll start with Jefferson first. There are consultants out there who specialize in relocation. Did you ever use or consider using somebody like that to help you with the move?
Not a consultant. But maybe this would fit into that box. We used our law firm to help us with this, especially to apply for the various taxes and the various grants. We didn't know about all of them. So that was very helpful, because we also didn't know South Carolina as well as to who and what and when and how much. So we definitely used our South Carolina law firm, who knew how to maneuver around the tax issues better than we did. So yes, we did have some help in this.
And Jan, how about on your end? Did you have any outside advisors to help you with the relocation?
Yeah, we got advisors from the Entrepreneur Center that were during the project healthcare on our side, and through their network we managed to do everything with them. But we had not an external relocation advisor or something like this, so we did it with the network within the EC.
Now, Jan, I'll stay with you on the next question. How important was public infrastructure to your decision to relocate to Nashville? Did it matter what condition roads and rails, airport access, internet access, were those things important, or were they not a big factor in your decision?
They were not a big factor. Of course, we need internet access, and very big one, but everything else was not a driver for us.
Jefferson, how about you guys?
I would say airport probably is, because from 2008 or 9, our franchise was Northern Georgia, Western North Carolina. From 2012 on, we've added Charleston, Raleigh, Myrtle Beach, and now we've added Orlando and most of the markets in Florida, Jacksonville. So having access to a airport so we could actually reach our franchise faster and maybe make it a day trip instead of a 2-day trip was important. And our Greenville is also center to our franchise, where Blairsville is kind of more on the northwest side. So we moved more center and became more mobile at the same time.
We're talking to Jefferson Harralson and Jan Schlueter, and the topic is, should I relocate my business? We're running out of time, so I want to make sure that I'm respectful of the things you need to get done with the rest of your day. Another question I'm curious about: when you decided to move, how big a factor was just the nature and the growth of the local economy in your decision to move? Jefferson, let me start with you on that.
I mean, it was central to everything for us, really. I mean, a bank is really just a mirror of the economies that it serves. It's a mirror of where the branches are. And so to have our leadership headquartered here, I think translates into faster growth over time. So it was very central to be in a larger, more vibrant city for us.
And Jan, how about you?
The same with us. So to hire people from there, from the client's ecosystem, healthcare industry. So we need all sorts of sales, project management, and developers. And Tennessee itself has the resources to give it to us, if you so will. That's good.
So, Jan, let me start with you on this. Did anything surprise you about the relocation process? Was there anything that came up that surprised you either in a negative or a positive way regarding maybe how easy it was to relocate, or something that may have been unexpected once you actually made the move?
The only thing that was astonishing is that you have to use the plastic card more often than that you can pay with Apple Pay with your phone. That is the only thing I can, let's say, recognize. Okay. Everything else was very, very smoothly and well organized and great.
Okay, Jefferson, how about you?
Yes, I'll go back to one thing I said earlier. Was as ours was gradual, and some parts of jobs were moving to Greenville. Sometimes a whole job would move to Greenville, but it wasn't all happening at one time. There was I wasn't as an individual task moved over. I underestimated the sensitivity people would have to this happening, but as it happened more and more, then it became an issue that we needed to communicate more about. So that was the only downside and the only real surprise. But besides that, it was as expected and has met all of our expectations.
Well, gentlemen, we've had, I think, a good conversation, put out a lot of, I think, very specific and actionable information out there. If a listener wants to contact either one of you with a question, maybe to go deeper into something we talked about or cover a topic that we didn't cover today, can they contact you with a question? And if so, what's the best way to do that?
So I'll start. Yes, absolutely. I'm Jefferson_Harralson at ucbi.com. And I'll be glad to respond to your question.
Yeah, and absolutely here as well. So it's js@darvis.com. That's my email address.
Well, very good. That's going to wrap it up for today's program. I'd like to thank Jefferson Harralson and Jan Schlueter so much for joining us and sharing their expertise with us. We'll be exploring a new topic each week, so please tune in so that when you're faced with your next business decision, you have clear vision when making it. If you enjoy these podcasts, please consider leaving a review with your favorite podcast aggregator. It helps people find us so that we can help them. If you'd like to engage with me on social media and with my chart of the day and other content, I'm on LinkedIn as myself and at Unblakeable on Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, and Instagram. Once again, this is Mike Blake. Our sponsor is Brady Ware & Company, and this has been the Decision Vision Podcast.